All right, welcome to Database Management. This is Thursday, the 13th. Going through Chapter 3 in our design concepts. We've covered this, but we're going to look into more of the details of how database pieces relate to one another. Keys are, I'd say, one of the first things you think of. It's what uniquely identifies each row in a table. Uniquely identifies each row in a table. Go ahead and log into the phpMyAdmin account that you have. I'm going to log in as root. So I can do anything to any table. You can go ahead and log in, and then you will see databases over here on the left side. We're done with our Moodle database. We're going to be creating some of our own over here. And if I just look at the few of the tables I have in a database, let's see, what tables do you have over here, Nathan? Oh, you don't have any tables yet. Let's show how you can create a table in this database. Yeah. I didn't realize it was downloading something. Oh, okay. All right, so go to your school, go log into Schoology, and find in the course Database and Design, down in Course Resources, there is a link to the data files link. I actually have them in a Google Drive. So data files link in your Course Resources page, and that will let you view a whole folder of data files. It's a Google Drive link I shared with you. And jump down into Chapter 3. Okay, so databases, course resources, and database course. And then down in Course Resources, down underneath the picture of the book, Student Data Files helpful for homework practice. Click on that link. About the third link down after the picture of the book. Towards the top there. Do you find it? Okay. Now that is a link to a Google Drive. That should take you here to a drive that should just say, you should just see student then in the drive. There's a student folder. Open that student folder. Go down into Chapter 3 of that folder. See Chapter 3, and then Databases. And look what you have here. We have Access versions of the database, but we also have SQL versions of the database. So here's what we do with this. Double-click on that first one that ends with SQL.txt. Chapter 3 Aviaco. Double-click on that, and Google Docs, or it should show you the text in that file. I get a special text editor app that comes up. I Control-A, select everything in there, and I copy it to my clipboard. Control-C. And then go back over to your database over in phpMyAdmin, and you can click on the SQL tab. I'll help Anthony out here. I'll go to his, and I'll go to SQL tab, and you can paste that in there. Control V, and before typing go or before clicking on go, just let's look at what this SQL code is. You're gonna start learning what all this is. Let's see what it say. What's it say? Over it, just give you select all. Yeah. You do select all. Well, I would ignore that for now and just see. Let's see what mine looks like. I think mine looks the same way. I don't get the error message, but I see this. Let's take a look at that first one. Let's go down through this first table. here is the actual SQL command that will actually create a table for us. The table's name is aircraft. And in parentheses here are, yeah, let me zoom in a little bit here. So I have this. Zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah. Which one did you click?
I clicked the one that ended with SQL. That's important. You can't use the other ones. You have to use the one that ends. Where did it go? Here. It has to be the file that ends with _SQL.txt. Oh, sorry. I use SQL. It should have been the MySQL. Sorry, MySQL. Let me look at the MySQL. Control A, select. Control C, copy. And then go back to phpMyAdmin. Let me select all and paste. Now, here is the code for creating that first table. We'll ignore the errors for now. Let's just see if you have the same strings. Does that look right for your?
I got a different table. Mine's creating a table called agent.
Okay, back here in the link. You're down in chapter 3. Avia MySQL at the very top one. Click on name so it's sorted ascending by name.
There we go.
Okay, you were sorting in a reverse order. Now, so maybe there is a problem with that other one that I didn't see yet. Okay, so that first one, okay, so now I've got that first one. Copy all of that and then paste it over into phpMyAdmin window. Now you should have this. Okay, don't worry about the error message for now, unless yours looks different than mine. You should have permissions to create anything inside of your own database. So is this what you have there? Create table aircraft.
Yep, I think we finally got it.
Okay.
Except there's some additional stuff on the top.
There's some comment at the top.
No, above the comment, there's other stuff.
There shouldn't be anything above the comment. You did click on the SQL tab.
It's not some additional text there.
Weird. Well, just get rid of that. I don't know why that's there. Maybe that's because of how you looked at the text. Well, it looks like it's good now.
Okay, so what you're doing there, that is the code that actually creates your fields or columns in your table. And they mentioned in the book, you can think of this as like a variable name. It's and they refer to that as the rel var. This is the name of the variable that can hold things. This tells us what it holds, the type of data it can hold. And as we look at other operations between tables, one thing to think about here is any table that has a varchar, float is union compatible with this table because it has the same columns in the same order. That's what union compatible means when we start looking at operations between tables. But let's go ahead, since you don't have that table yet, once you have this code copied and pasted, you can just click on the little go button down here and it will actually run that query, and you should get something like this, show a one row affected. And then you can look at your structure. You should see, look at that, it should have created 6 tables. So let's do a little debugging for you. Alright, so we got things figured out with Nathan's database, and now Anthony's database has this structure in here. And I might as well, since we only have a few, I'm going to go over to, let's see, I got to get those tables open again. I closed it, and let me go back to, there we go. I can select another database. I can select the Gatonga database because I somehow closed, oh, here we go. There we go. I can select a database. What we learned here is as we work with databases in the database management system, before we can run SQL, it has to know what database I'm running the SQL against. And that's called selecting the database. So I'm selecting the Gatonga database now. Now when I run code and paste the SQL language specifications without anything but comments, notice how we can put comments in here in C language type comments. Now when I run, if it's all happy with everything in there, it'll show that. Now if I go back and click on this database, it shows these tables there. And we can always come back and run more SQL. But just clicking on a table one at a time, I can see what's in there. Or I can come back over here. If I refresh this page, I will now see a plus next to each one. And I can see the actual content of each table by just clicking on its table, the table name. It'll show me the contents with an idea of what the name is of each column. If I click on the top of a column, notice it will take me to, it will sort based on that column if I click on it. If I want to actually look at the structure and the definition of every field, I can click on structure here, and it shows me what each field is defined as. So a little more complicated than Access, but much more powerful because it's residing on a server. I can run queries against this database from any website as long as I've set the permissions correct on access to my database. Okay, so back to the concepts here in the book. Looking at this, let's just look at this aircraft database. And I'll look at the same one you have, just so data is exactly the same. We're thinking about now of keys and integrity of our database. Integrity means, is there something that uniquely refers to each row in my table? Is there a way to define a key that will define something will be unique to each row? What do you think would be the key in this table? Yeah, the AC number looks like unique, and usually good designers usually make that the leftmost element. No guarantee. Now you might think, oh, the mod code. Well, we do see two things here that have the same mod code. And as we look at these others, if I look at the actual structure, I'll see that those others are floating point numbers. Those would not make good keys. I think keys, I don't even think it lets you make a floating point a key. Oh, look, it seems like it actually might. Let's see if it will. If I click primary, let's see if it'll let me make that a primary key. I click OK. Oh, look at that. It's happy to make it a primary key. I didn't think it would let me. And I can turn that off, I think, just by toggling it off. Or, uh-oh. Let's see, I think I can drop, yeah, I think I can drop that as a primary key just by clicking drop here. There we go. So no index defined, it gives that as a warning. Don't worry about those things. We're just exploring databases and the tables. Now if I ever mess up here and by doing some kind of query, erase something or corrupt the data, remember I can always go back to that resources page and create my tables from those scripts. If you look in there, what's in there is scripts for multiple languages, multiple database languages. Back in chapter 3, for every chapter where they're using example databases, they have MySQL, Oracle is the other big name out there for databases, SQL, that's Microsoft, and it looks a lot like MySQL, and I was actually fooled. I opened this one, and I think MySQL actually might have even taken those queries, because basic queries are very similar between SQL and MySQL. MDB there then would be the downloadable access file. And notice it's MDB, not ACCDB, so we know this is an older format. And I think Office 2016 will complain if we save it, it'll say, you are converting this, or do you want to convert it? Since these are basic tables, that should be okay. So back to our database, we have that in front of us. Where did it go? Right there in phpMyAdmin. that particular table, I can tell what table it is by the format across the top here. I have my little breadcrumbs. I can go back to here, and I see everything I have in my database, multiple tables. Now, can we tell if any of these tables are able to combine or be a union? How would we know? Well, we have to see.
I guess that model goes with aircraft based on the one thing I saw.
Well, let's see what columns we have in it. So we have model, and then with aircraft, are we referring to a model? There's a model code. So we can guess the structure just by the names of the items, that they've been careful to give them decent names. There are ways to do more looking at the actual structure in the designer that's similar to the relationships set up in Access. But we won't worry about the designer right now. We'll just derive the relationships as we work with the databases. Alright, so now I have aircraft table, and I'm going to go to my version now. I'm in the Gatanga. I'm going to go to my plain one here because I'm going to mess around with this. And I've run multiple queries, have a few more. I'm going to make a copy of aircraft. I think it'll let me do that. Can I right click? I want to duplicate this database. I know there's one way I can do it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this in a different way so I can practice some of these operations between two tables that they talk about in the book. So I'm going to go back to the SQL that was generating this table. See how this create table aircraft? I'm going to copy that information right there that creates the table. I'm going to do a Control-C. I'm going to come over here to Notepad. Go ahead and do this as well. Copy your creation of your aircraft table and go over to Notepad and just paste that part of the script in it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use this code to generate a second table. We'll call it aircraft 2. Same exact structure in the types of and names of variables, but different information about our aircrafts. So go in and put different numbers for our aircrafts. Especially make a different first value for it, because that is the primary key. Let's make different keys for that. I'm going to make a different key for a couple of them. I'm going to leave it the same for others. So we have some rows that are the same, some rows that are different. And I'm going to add a new row of a completely new one. Actually, I do have two new rows of completely new ones. There. Now I have 3 rows of completely new aircraft, although some of the numbers are suspiciously the same. Now I'm going to copy that code, Control-A, Control-C, copy. I'm going to go over to phpMyAdmin with my database selected. I can now go to SQL. One way to tell that your database is selected is it shows up there at the top of your little address bar thingy. And I'm going to replace that select query that goes in there by default with create aircraft 2 table. And go. And I should be happy, all green. Now I can go back to my database, and I see that I have databases, or I have tables, aircraft and aircraft 2. Now comes the part where we start playing with operations on tables. You got it working? Okay. Take a look at your tables and see what you have in them. If I click on the aircraft table, I should have that information. And aircraft 2, uh-oh, I don't have anything in mine either. How could that be? Let's go back and look. Oh, let's go back and look at my SQL and my Notepad. What did I do wrong here? Oh, look at that. I didn't insert, I changed the name of my table there, but I forgot to change my insert, and I put values into aircraft 1. I've added additional aircraft 1s, and this was meant to add aircraft 2. So now, since I already have created the table aircraft 2, just copy the insert ones, and then go back to MySQL. And now, this will insert into aircraft 2 the values I want. And I can click Go. Alright, I'm going to go back to aircraft and delete the extra ones that I added by accident over here. I think, let's see, can I do a delete here? Yeah, I thought I could just browse this table. Let's see here. I thought I could browse it and delete information. Let's click Browse. No. If I click Aircraft over here. Oh, edit. Let's try Edit Inline. See what that does. No. Right there. Let's try Edit. No. That's editing the SQL. Let's go back to Browse. If I select a row, does it let me do anything to it? Well, I guess we'll leave it there. It has extra stuff in there, and we can live with that. If we ever wanted to, I could delete this table and rerun the creation of the aircraft table. We'll live with it for now, because the point here is we want to perform queries having to do with those two tables, aircraft and aircraft 2. So now, let's go back to SQL. Now that we have those two aircraft tables, aircraft has more than it had originally. Aircraft 2 has these with some new ones in there. Let's now go to my SQL language, and let's just look at a basic select. I'm going to even turn off the where one. This is a basic operation on a database table. If I run it, what it does is it's selecting items from that table. Select star means show me everything, and I can click Edit, and instead of star, let me click Select AC number. And it has to be all caps, just as written. It is case sensitive. And Go. Notice the results I get is just that column of data from my table. I think I can, let's try Edit Inline. There we go. Now I can edit inline. And let's do Select a aircraft. Oh, no, that's the name of my table. What is in my aircraft? I can plus over here and see, oh, it's ACTTAF. And click Go. And it gives me just that row. So selecting either everything with the star or a specific column of information from my table. And I can tell it which table I want the information from. If I want it from aircraft, as long as there's a column with that name, it'll be happy with this. And I have that information out of my table. So that's the select operation on tables. Now, back in the book, they discuss, after talking about keys, they talk about these, we'll call these theoretical operations on tables. The select, we'll skip the key part because there we go. In the relational algorithms, this is the theory behind databases. Not all the languages do this. Here's where they talked about relvars. That's like the name of my column is the relvar. What's in it is they're calling it relation. I usually just call it the data or the value at that point. They are referring to it as the relation, but I don't find a lot of database people call it the relation. They call it the data or the value. But in the book here, they're calling it, there's a rel var, that's like the variable name. The data in it, they call the relation. Okay, there is our select, also known as restrict. Basically saying select, instead of all, I can use select star, which is in MySQL equivalent to all. Select star from a table. That's the syntax. I have to say, give me that information from a specific table. That is the sigma operation, the theoretical sigma select operation. Okay? Now, project is not actually in MySQL as far as I know, but it returns specific attributes. What's basically what SQL does, they combine project and select into select when there's no conditions, it's like the project operation. Let's do a select with conditions. So I go back to MySQL, and I want to write the code that would just give me the ACC TTAF, total flight hours maybe, that is less, let's do that is less than 7,000. Here's how we would specify that. And I can do this lower or uppercase, the where clause. This is what we call the where clause, or restricting what I get from the table based on what comes after where. Where, now I do have to do this in the exact case sensitivity. Whenever I'm naming a field, ACTTAF is less than, and let's see if we can do this, less than 7,000. Let's see if this will be a happy query. Now if I click go, there I get results. This was valid because I'm comparing mathematically, which is, this is a double, so it will be happy. Sometimes if you do this and you're trying to do it with strings, sometimes it will come back and saying type mismatch. But the type of that is double. I'm giving it a hard-coded number double. This is a select restricted to numbers less than 7,000. Let's change that to numbers greater than 7,000. I should only get one result, I think. And I can just change, oh, I have to edit inline, sorry. Change that to greater than, and then go. And oh, there were two, because remember I have duplicate lines in there. I can go back to select from aircraft, editing in line, select from aircraft. That removes the restriction. This is the same as a project. That shows me all the ACTTAF. If I want to see every field, put star there. And I have my project. Okay, so those are operations that I can perform similar to this select. Okay, so that's the theory. Now let's go to the next one here. There's the project, and the next one is union. Let's see if we have a union operation in MySQL. But before we try it, here's what a union should produce. The combination of both tables, but they have to be union compatible, meaning they have to have the same field types in the same number of fields, the same number of columns, and the corresponding columns share the same or compatible. When they call it domain, that is like the type of variable it is. So string, double, integer, that's what they mean by the same or compatible domains. So let's see if we can do some kind of intersect with MySQL. So going back to phpMyAdmin, we have aircraft and we have aircraft 2. And I know they're union compatible because I created aircraft 2 from the same code that created aircraft and just changed the name. So to find out whether there's a join in MySQL, what I can do is go out to the mysql.org, or just do a search for MySQL join tables. Let's do that, because that's probably what I would most likely do. If you're searching for something, let's see, MySQL join tables. There's SQL join, and here's a MySQL join. And what it looks like is